Hi guys, today I'm showing you guys how much an Aussie egg is worth in 2026. For those of you unfamiliar, the Aussie egg came out in 2020 in Adopt Me and was pretty much there throughout the entire pandemic era. And I remember back then, an Aussie egg was worth pretty much nothing, but that was 6 years ago, which is always crazy to think about. So I did want to see kind of how much the egg was worth now, because if I remember correctly, the Aussie egg was kind of removed in late 2020 to make way for the fossil egg, so there's no way to get it other than trading. And as you can tell, 2020 was 6 years ago, so I'm sure the value has risen a lot since then. Without further ado, let's get into the trades. The very first trade that I did was my Aussie egg for the other person who had put a Admin Abuse egg and a Cozy Mistral. And there's nothing wrong with this trade, but I personally did not want to accept it because I know that the Aussie egg is worth more, but they declined, so it's fine. I forgot to record the beginning of this trade, but the person did offer me a ride gold unicorn and a golden dragon. However, I also did not want to accept this because the gold pets are really hard to trade and don't have a lot of demand, especially when compared to the Aussie egg. For this next trade was actually a pretty good trade. It just depends on kind of what values you use if you like pets themselves. But a hot take alert, I think the unicorn is kind of overrated. So I really did not want to accept this. But it was definitely a good offer and probably the best offer so far in terms of demand, because the unicorn always gets good offers. This next clip was definitely kind of the most aggravating, I would say, out of the entire trade situation that I did, because initially this person offered me a right alicorn and I did not want to accept it because the alicorn is in-game compared to the Aussie egg, which has been out of game for multiple years. So I was going to type that I was no longer interested in the trade, but I guess they had seen me typing and they decided to change their offer. And in this new offer, they put a Flyride Dragon as well as a couple other good pets, including some out-of-game pets. And I don't know why I was going to accept this, but I definitely was going to accept it. Looking back, it was not a really good trade. It was kind of fair, but the pets themselves were kind of really low demand. So as you can see, they did try to add, but that's not kind of the most infuriating part. The most infuriating part was definitely that they waited for me to get all the way to the second trade window before declining. And it kind of makes me a little bit mad because it's like, come on. There was no reason to do that. Like, if you weren't going to accept it, you could have just declined in the first window, not made me wait all that time. But that's fine. This person then offered for my Aussie egg, and they put a bunch of cracked eggs. I kind of don't need to explain why this wasn't a very fair trade on my part, because the cracked eggs are still in demand, and all the pets you can get from them, even the legendaries, have little to no value. And even though there's a mega, which is the rubber ducky, I personally think that it's worth almost nothing as well. It's a really low tier mega, especially because it's a common. So I did unfortunately have to decline. Okay, I take back what I said. This was definitely the most aggravating part of the entire trading challenge, because this person tried to scam me by stating that their Cloud and Rainbow Rattle was a real Cloud Rattle, which is a very rare item in the game. However, I did not fall for that and immediately declined, so please be safe out there, guys. Don't get scammed. This next person offered me the classic ride potion, which is a good item, don't get me wrong, but for an Aussie egg, it's definitely worth at least like 2 or 3 ride potions. So I wasn't declined, but they declined for me, so it's fine. This next trade involved a bunch of the newer pets for summer 2026. And I love the pets. I think they all look super duper cute, but value-wise, they're just not equal at all to the Aussie egg. And even though they did add a bunch of strollers, which would have been fair as I do collect strollers, I unfortunately had every single one of them. So I did end up having to decline this offer, unfortunately. This next trade was probably the biggest profit that I could have gotten from the Aussie egg, which was a red potion and so many mega black-footed ferrets from the endanger egg. And I have no idea how this person was able to get so many megas, but this just goes to show you the amount of value that the Aussie egg has gotten over time, because I remember when trading it for 1 mega would have been so crazy back in 2020. But unfortunately, I did decline because I wasn't really looking to trade the egg anyways. I was more so looking for offers. So I did decline, but it was a really, really good offer. Probably the best one I've gotten so far. Speaking of megas, I had someone offer me 2 mega Oak Knights from the new Summer 2026 Acorn boxes for my Aussie egg, and I did think this was an okay deal, but I do know that all of the Summer 2026 pets, with the exception of a couple of them, are rapidly losing value, so I unfortunately did not accept this either. This was definitely the fairest trade that I got the entire time I was trading, which was a Ride Silverback Gorilla. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't have the same demand as the giant panda that came before it, so I unfortunately did not accept this trade either, but it was definitely very, very fair. This person then traded me wanting to offer for the egg as well, and they did ask me if I would consider doing these pets, which consisted of a Mega, a Neon, another Neon, and a Ride Potion. This wasn't a bad offer by any means, especially the pets, because 2 of them were legendary, and 1 was an ultra rare, so this was definitely a pretty fair trade, I'd say, along with the Ride Potion, which was a really nice add. But I did not accept this because I'm not really familiar with the values of the pets, and I know that the alicorn itself especially is not really worth too much because it's kind of been in the game for multiple years now. So I did have to decline, but at least this person was very, very nice. I then had someone trade me and they offered a crystal egg. I'm not sure if they thought that the Aussie egg was that old, because they did ask me if it was an okay egg for the trade. But I did let them know that I wasn't really a fan of it. However, I guess they really, really wanted the Aussie egg, so they did end up changing their offer, and the new offer became a Clover Cow, which was Ride, and an admin abuse egg. But I unfortunately did not want to accept this either because I'm not too sure on the value of the Clover Cow, but I do know that the admin abuse eggs are something that we get every Saturday, and we usually tend to get multiple, so there's pretty much no value to be had with the admin abuse egg, so I unfortunately did have to decline this trade. And with that, my offers of C1 and Aussie eggs worth in 2026 is finally over. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and let me know if you'd like to see me do this with any other older items that I have, because as a 2020 player, I have so many older items. So just let me know and make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.